Ladies and gentlemen, some mornings feel heavy. Your body rises, but your soul feels like it's still buried beneath yesterday's troubles. But let me tell you something divine. The moment you speak to God in the early hours, it is not just prayer, it is transformation. Before the sun fully rises, before the demands of life come knocking, there is a sacred moment waiting for you. A moment where the stillness of heaven meets the silence of your room. This is where true power lives, not in rushing, not in striving, but in surrender. If you ever wondered why your days feel chaotic, why your peace slips away too easily, then perhaps you've missed the most important appointment of your day, your morning meeting with the King of Kings. You see, when you begin your day with prayer, not just repetition, but a real encounter, everything changes. Because prayer isn't you reaching for God. It's God reaching through you. So close your eyes to your heart. Now listen deeply. Father, this morning I yield myself to you. Before I touch my phone, before I face the world, I kneel before you. Let your will be done in my life today. Order my steps. Guide my thoughts. Fill me with the Holy Spirit. Let every word I speak today carry your power. Let every place I step radiate your presence. I cast all my cares at your feet. Every worry, every burden, every fear, I surrender it now, for you are my source, my strength, my refuge. Cover my family. Surround my mind with peace. Surround my body with health. Surround my soul with fire. And most of all, let your presence never leave me today. Let me walk in divine favor. Touch hearts with love. And return to you tonight with praise. That's not just a prayer. That's a lifeline. That is how mountains move. That is how peace flows. That is how you live, not just by breath, but by spirit. The reason you must finish this message is because today could be the day heaven touches your life like never before. This is the kind of prayer that doesn't just bless your morning. It rewrites your destiny. So don't miss what God has prepared for you. Every miracle has a beginning. And yours starts with the first word you speak in the morning. Morning prayer is not simply a spiritual habit or a religious routine. It is the moment when the human heart aligns with divine purpose. In those quiet hours before the world awakens, when the soul is most tender and the distractions are still asleep, something sacred begins to stir. The act of morning prayer is not just about speaking words into the air. It's about entering into a divine exchange, a sacred communion where heaven and earth meet within the silence of your heart. In that stillness, you are not just heard, you are aligned. You are brought into divine order with the heart and mind of God. Everything you will face today, every challenge, every decision, every unexpected moment is already known by the Creator. So when you pray in the morning, you are not simply reacting to life. You are preparing for it with spiritual clarity. Imagine your soul as a compass. Without alignment, it spins, confused by the magnetism of worry, anxiety, fear, or yesterday's wounds. But when you pray, truly pray, You recalibrate your inner compass to point toward truth, peace, and divine direction. Suddenly you are not living by impulse or emotion, but by guidance. You are not led by the noise of the world, but by the whisper of God. This is the power of morning prayer. It doesn't change the world around you first. It changes you. It aligns your inner world with the will of God, and when that happens, the outer world begins to respond. Circumstances no longer dictate your emotions. People no longer steal your peace. Fear no longer writes your story. Because you began the day not as a servant of the world's chaos, but as a child of divine order. In that sacred alignment, revelation comes. You begin to see what others do not see. You begin to speak what others need to hear. You begin to carry a stillness that can walk into any storm and bring calm that is not because of your strength. It is because of His Spirit flowing through a surrendered heart. Prayer becomes the pipeline for heavenly wisdom to flow into earthly situations. When your day begins with God, you are no longer just reacting to the world. You are moving with spiritual intention. When you wake up and run straight into activity, emails, texts, tasks, traffic. But what if you paused? What if you knelt? What if the first thing you did every day was step into the presence of the one who holds the day in his hands? That single shift would not only change your morning, it would change your life. Because morning prayer is not just something good to do. It is something essential if you want to live in power, peace, and purpose. You will find that when you start your day with prayer, your spirit becomes sensitive to divine timing. You begin to discern what to do and what to let go of. You begin to see open doors and sense closed ones before walking through them. You move in step with something greater than instinct. You walk under divine instruction. Even your relationships begin to shift. People notice something different about you, an unseen strength, a gentleness that disarms anger, a clarity that speaks without striving. That is what alignment looks like. It is not about perfection. You don't have to say the right words or pray for an hour. What matters is that your heart is present, open, surrendered. Whether your prayer is loud or silent, long or short, if it is real, if it is honest, it will align you, because God doesn't respond to performance. He responds to authenticity. There is also healing in this daily alignment. Healing from anxiety, healing from regret, healing from insecurity. As you place your heart before the throne each morning, God slowly begins to rearrange what's broken. He replaces fear with faith. He fills emptiness with love. He pours light into the places you've hidden. You come out of that prayer not just ready to face the day, but ready to live it with power and conviction. And here's the miracle. You don't even need to feel spiritual for this to work. Even on the mornings when you're tired, when your faith feels weak, when your words feel dry, if you show up, God shows up. That is the promise of alignment. It's not about how strong you are. It's about how surrendered you're willing to be. Morning prayer brings your soul into harmony with the will of God. And when that happens, your entire life begins to move in rhythm with divine favor. So when you wake up tomorrow, don't let the day rush you. Don't let the world pull you before you've been pulled into His presence. Make room, just a few minutes, to breathe, to open your heart, to let heaven touch earth. That is the moment that transforms your morning. That is the beginning of a life that is not only lived, but led by the hand of God Himself. There is something sacred that happens in the morning when the soul dares to be honest. Before the sun fully rises and before the weight of the day begins to press on your shoulders, there is a window, a divine moment where you can release everything you've been carrying. Morning prayer becomes the sacred space where burdens are no longer hidden, where pain is no longer masked, and where anxiety is no longer allowed to rule. It is the moment of spiritual release, the moment you stop pretending and start surrendering. It's the place where your worries don't just echo in your thoughts. They are placed into the hands of the Almighty. Most people walk through life carrying silent weights, emotional baggage, lingering guilt, sleepless thoughts, words they never said, wounds they never healed. Every morning they rise from their beds and unknowingly pick up those burdens again, wearing them like invisible chains. But there is a different way. There is a path where your soul doesn't begin the day weighed down, but lifted up. That path begins in prayer. When you come before God in the morning, you are not required to have the answers. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be eloquent. You simply need to come honestly. You bring your grief, your confusion, your stress, your hopes, your failures, and you lay them down. You speak them out. You whisper them through tears if you have to. Because when you release your burdens in prayer, something divine takes place. You let go, and heaven picks it up. What once felt heavy now feels held. There is healing in releasing. Many people think strength is about holding things in, keeping it together, never breaking down. But in the spiritual realm, real strength is found in surrender. When you begin your morning in that posture of surrender, your burdens no longer define your identity. You're no longer the anxious one. You're no longer the broken one. You're no longer the one carrying the world. You are the one who trusts. You are the one who has placed everything at the feet of a God who cares deeply and acts powerfully. The soul was never designed to carry the weight of everything. That's why we experience anxiety. That's why our thoughts feel scattered. That's why peace feels elusive, because we were never meant to bear it all alone. Morning prayer is the divine reset. It's the moment where the clutter in your spirit is cleared out, where fear is replaced by courage, where confusion is replaced by clarity, where stress is swallowed by peace. That's not just poetic. It's real. And it begins the moment you say, Lord, I can't carry this anymore. You begin to realize that God doesn't want your perfection. He wants your trust. He doesn't want you to hold it all together. He wants you to hand it all over. That's the beauty of prayer. It's not a performance. It's a pouring out. It's a heart laid bare before the one who understands every detail and holds every answer. And this kind of release is not always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper, sometimes it's a sigh, sometimes it's tears that fall without words. But in that quiet surrender, something invisible breaks. Chains fall, lies unravel, and the soul breathes again. And once you've tasted that freedom, you won't want to begin a single day without it. They'll find that the more you release, the lighter you feel. The lighter you feel, the clearer you hear. And the clearer you hear, the more confidently you walk. It becomes a cycle of spiritual empowerment, not because life is suddenly perfect, but because you're no longer trying to control what was never yours to hold. You walk into meetings with peace. You face challenges with a calm strength. You speak to others with patience and grace, not because you're trying harder, but because your soul has been lifted higher. The most amazing part is that God doesn't just take your burdens, He exchanges them. He gives you peace in place of pressure, joy in place of sorrow, strength in place of weariness. That's not just comfort, that's transformation. That's what makes morning prayer essential, not optional, not occasional, but essential. It is the holy transaction that turns emotional weight into spiritual wings. And so when the morning comes and your body begins to stir, remember this. Before the day demands anything from you, step into that sacred place. Close your eyes. Speak from your heart. Say, Lord, I give this all to you. Give Him your plans, your fears, your pain, your loved ones. Lay them down and watch how peace begins to rise, not from your circumstances, but from within your soul. Because the truth is, the burden was never yours to carry. It belongs in the hands of the one who can transform it. There is unmatched authority in the words you speak, especially in the morning. When your lips open at the beginning of the day, they are not merely producing sound, they are setting the tone for everything that will follow. Morning prayer is not only a time to surrender and receive, but it is a divine moment to speak forth the reality you choose to live in. This is the hour when you declare faith, not fear, victory, not defeat, healing, not brokenness. Mere first words are not shaped by circumstances, but by spiritual conviction. What you speak, you give life to. Every word carries energy, weight, and direction. And so in those sacred minutes of morning prayer, when your heart is closest to God and your spirit is most alert, you must choose to speak life. Speak hope. Speak peace, even if you don't feel it yet, especially if you don't feel it. That's when spoken faith becomes the most powerful, because it is not based on evidence. It is based on trust. Would you rise and say, today is a day of purpose. God is with me. I walk in favor. I walk in wisdom. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. You are not just reciting phrases. You are aligning the invisible realm with the promises of God. You are speaking divine truth into human moments. You are laying the spiritual tracks upon which your day will run. Even when the reality around you seems opposite, your words go ahead of you like light piercing the fog. They prepare the way. The morning is a sacred gate. It is the transition from rest to responsibility, from stillness to action. If you do not claim that gate with spoken faith, the world will rush in and fill it with doubt, fear, and noise. But when you take just a few minutes to speak aloud your trust in God, to declare His goodness, His covering, His plans, you're closing the door to fear and opening the windows of heaven over your life. There is nothing passive about spoken prayer. It is not a ritual. It is a weapon. Every time you speak a promise of God over your day, you are pushing back against anxiety, confusion, and spiritual oppression. You are drawing a line and saying, I will not walk in darkness today. I will walk in light. You are reminding not only yourself, but the unseen forces around you, that your life is not dictated by feelings or facts, but by faith. And there is something transformative that happens when your ears hear your own voice declare faith. It shifts your internal atmosphere. It wakes up the spirit. It reminds the flesh that it is not in charge. When you say God is for me and nothing can stand against me, even your doubts begin to lose their grip. The heaviness that tried to greet you in the morning starts to break. Your mindset lifts. Your expectations shift. You are no longer bracing for the worst. You are preparing for the best. This practice isn't about pretending problems don't exist. It's about declaring that problems do not have the final word. It's about acknowledging that God's truth is higher than man's opinion, stronger than any diagnosis, more powerful than any fear. And when that truth is spoken with conviction, it becomes a force that reshapes the atmosphere around you. Imagine stepping into every day already armed with words of power. Before the first email, before the first challenge, before the first temptation to complain or worry, you have already declared, peace rules my mind. I have divine clarity. I have the wisdom of heaven. I am strong, even in weakness. That is not just spiritual. It is strategic. It is how you gain control over the tone of your day. It is how you stop reacting and start reigning. There's a reason why the enemy tries so hard to keep you silent. Because silence in the morning leaves room for fear to speak first. But when you fill the space with faith, you take spiritual territory before the enemy even has a chance. That's why your declarations matter. That's why your words must rise before the worry does. And what's most beautiful is this. You don't need a platform, a microphone, or a church sanctuary. You only need a quiet moment, a willing heart, and a few words of truth. Whether whispered in your room, spoken in your car, or declared in your kitchen while the coffee brews, those words carry heaven's authority. Your voice becomes the echo of God's promises. So as the sun begins to rise, don't just let the light hit your skin. Let your voice send light into your path. Speak faith, and your day will follow. Speak love, and your heart will soften. Speak life, and watch how dead things begin to stir again. Your words are not small. They are seeds. And when planted in the soil of morning prayer, they grow into strength, joy, peace, and victory. Look it. Leave it. And watch your life transform one warning, one prayer, one word of faith at a time. There is a force that stirs within you each morning when you choose to speak with God, a dormant authority waiting to awaken. In the quiet moments before the world demands your attention, your soul steps fully into the realm of power that was granted to you from the beginning. This is not a lofty concept or a distant promise. It is an immediate reality available the moment your lips move in prayer. When you lift your voice, you are claiming your rightful place as a child of heaven, endowed with authority to speak, to heal, to bless, and to overcome. That authority does not depend on your eloquence or your credentials. It depends solely on the one who placed you here with a purpose. When you pray in the morning, you are making a declaration to the invisible world. You will no longer be a passive observer of life's circumstances. You will be an active participant in the unfolding of heaven's plan on earth. The very act of prayer shifts you from a position of reaction to a position of dominion. You begin to see yourself not as a victim of situations, but as a victor empowered by divine sovereignty. Your words become gates through which heaven's power flows. And your faith becomes the key that unlocks miracles. Already awakened means that when you face conflict, whether in relationships, in health, or in the workplace, you no longer feel helpless or fearful. Instead, you stand firm in the confidence that the same power that raised the cosmos into being is at work within you. You carry the authority to speak truth into deception, to command peace into chaos, and to declare life over death. And the moment you rise each day and lean into prayer, you are stepping onto the battlefield of the Spirit, fully armed. There is a sweetness in knowing that you do not have to muster up strength on your own. Your authority is a gift. It is rooted not in charisma or in rank, but in identity. You are a child of the King, and his power lives within you. When you pray, you remind heaven of its covenant with you, and heaven responds with power. Doors that seemed locked begin to open. Barriers that looked insurmountable begin to crumble. Chains that once bound your potential shatter at the sound of your declaration. This authority is not meant to be hidden. It is meant to be released in every sphere of your life. In your family, you can speak peace over broken relationships. In your work, you can declare creativity and favor. In your community, you can call in unity and healing. These words are not mere hopes. They are commands that heaven obeys. And the key to unlocking them lies in the morning prayer that activates your spiritual authority. We wonder how a simple act of kneeling or raising your hands can wield such power. The answer lies in alignment. When your spirit aligns with God's will, you become a conduit of his power. Anytime you speak in agreement with heaven, my body is healed, my mind is clear, my life is full of purpose. You are releasing a force that has been waiting for your consent to move. The spring is ready, your voice is the trigger. This awakened authority also guards you against the creeping lies of doubt and fear. As you declare your divine rights each morning, you build a spiritual fortress around your mind and heart. You train your faith to recognize when the enemy tries to whisper, "You can't," and to answer with the thunder of heaven's voice, "I can, for the one who lives in me is greater." In that constant exchange, you become unshakable. And the most profound beauty of this authority is that it extends beyond you. As you walk in freedom, others take notice. Your presence begins to shift atmospheres. People are drawn to the calm strength you carry. When you lay hands on a situation, you are releasing the same power that knits broken bones and restores broken lives. You become a living testimony to divine authority at work on earth. So when the morning light filters through your window, remember that you are not simply waking up, you are waking into your destiny. The power you need to overcome, to love, to lead, to heal, to transform resides in your prayer. Speak boldly, knowing that your voice stirs the forces of heaven. Walk confidently, knowing that authority now walks with you. And carry this secret into every moment of your day. You are an ambassador of a higher kingdom. And your morning prayer has awakened the authority to bring that kingdom here. There is a sacred rhythm to life that begins in the stillness of the morning, and the most powerful way to enter that rhythm is through consistent communion with God. It is not in the grand gestures or dramatic events that transformation truly takes place. It is in the steady, daily act of showing up in silence, in faith, in surrender. When you make morning prayer a daily practice, you are not simply building a routine. You are laying the foundation for a life marked by divine stability, strength, and clarity. You are choosing to plant your soul in fertile soil each day, allowing your spirit to be nourished before the demands of the world attempt to uproot you. Consistency in prayer is what transforms moments into movements. What begins as a single act, perhaps groggy and uncertain, soon becomes a channel through which heaven flows freely. You begin to notice that your reactions are slower to fear, your thoughts clearer, your steps more deliberate. This is the fruit of devotion, and it cannot be rushed. Transformation does not often come through lightning, but through the quiet dripping of grace upon the soul. Every morning you choose to return to your secret place. Each time you rise early and speak with God, you are telling your inner world that He is your priority. You are declaring without needing to shout that your strength does not come from circumstances, caffeine, or control, but from communion. You begin your day already filled, already equipped, already aligned. There is less room for anxiety to invade when your first breath has been given to prayer. There is less space for confusion when your heart has already been anchored in divine wisdom before the noise of the world begins. Transformation through consistency is not dramatic, but it is undeniable. Others may not immediately see the difference, but you will feel it. You realize that what once made you anxious no longer holds power. The burdens that used to weigh you down now seem lighter, not because the burden has changed, but because you have. Morning by morning, your soul has been fortified. You've been renewed in spirit and trained in stillness. When you look back after weeks or months of faithful morning prayer, you begin to see a different person in the mirror, not because your circumstances have necessarily shifted, but because your capacity has expanded. Your joy has deepened. Your confidence has grown. You're no longer easily shaken, and even when trials come, as they inevitably do, you are rooted in something stronger than emotion. You are rooted in consistent relationship. There is divine power in simply showing up. Even in the mornings you don't feel spiritual, even when your mind is distracted, even when you don't have the right words, the act of coming to God first, before texts, before news, before schedules, is itself a declaration of transformation. It says, I believe you here. I trust that you're enough. I choose you above all. The choice made day after day becomes a forge in which your character is shaped. The beautiful paradox of this consistency is that it both grounds and elevates you. It keeps you humble, aware of your dependence on God, but also lifts you into a higher awareness of your calling. You begin to understand that transformation isn't something you chase. It's something you step into daily. Every morning becomes an invitation to grow, to surrender, to be reshaped by God's gentle hand. You don't need a perfect prayer. You don't need the right music, the right setting, or the right mood. You just need to come, to speak honestly, to listen quietly, to bring your heart before the one who made it. That consistent offering, given in secret, is what builds the strength that others call miraculous. It's where your discernment sharpens, your peace deepens, and your vision clears. And the more you return to this place each morning, the more you crave it, not out of obligation, but out of love. You begin to notice that something is missing on the days you skip it, not guilt, but absence, an emptiness that only His presence can fill. Because once you've tasted the sweetness of consistent communion, nothing else can compare. You realize that transformation isn't something that happens to you. It's something that is formed within you through daily encounters with the eternal. So if you seek change, don't wait for the storm. Don't wait for the crisis. Begin in the quiet. Begin now. Wake up early. Whisper your prayers. Pour out your heart. Let His Spirit meet you in the silence. And do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. For in this daily return, in this unshaken commitment, your life will take a new shape. One shaped by heaven, one steady and strong, one entirely transformed. The greatest power in morning prayer is not only in the words spoken, but in the atmosphere it creates around your life. Every time you engage in heartfelt communication with God, especially at the break of day, you are shifting the unseen realm. The natural eye cannot perceive it, but the spiritual atmosphere around you begins to change. What was once heavy becomes light. What was once unclear begins to take shape. Morning prayer releases a divine presence that surrounds you like a shield, an atmosphere of peace, favor, and divine orchestration. There is something sacred about the early hours of the day. The stillness, the silence, the purity of a fresh beginning. This is the moment when heaven listens most intently, and when your words carried by faith begin to shape not only your mindset, but also the spiritual climate around you. When you speak life, heaven responds. When you speak peace, confusion must flee. When you declare strength, weakness must bow. The spiritual atmosphere does not remain neutral. It responds to what you release in prayer. That's why morning prayer is not just an exercise in discipline. It's an act of creation. You are shaping the day before it unfolds. You are calling into existence the things not yet seen. You are commanding your environment to align with heaven's will, and while others may stumble into the day under a cloud of worry or fear, you rise covered in divine clarity. The peace you carry becomes contagious. The joy you hold becomes magnetic. The atmosphere around you is no longer set by circumstance. It's set by communion. Many people walk through life unaware of the spiritual warfare taking place around them. They carry burdens that were never meant to be theirs. They absorb chaos that doesn't belong to them. But when you engage in morning prayer, you draw a line in the sand. You claim authority over your space, your mind, your body, your home. You welcome the presence of God to govern your day. Now with His presence comes an atmosphere that cannot be counterfeited. An atmosphere that repels darkness and attracts divine favor. This is why some people seem to walk in unexplainable peace. It's not because life is easier for them. It's because they've learned the power of early surrender. They've chosen to partner with God before the demands of life take over. And in doing so, they've opened a spiritual canopy over their lives. A place where wisdom flows, strength is renewed, and protection is established. They carry an invisible, unshakable covering that others may not see, but everyone can feel. Morning prayer also acts as a spiritual thermostat. It sets the temperature of your soul and regulates how you respond to everything else. If your heart begins the day heated by worry, the whole day can feel chaotic. But if you begin with divine stillness, you carry that calm through every challenge. It is not emotionless, it is empowered. It is not avoidance, it is authority. Prayer doesn't remove every obstacle, but it shifts your internal weather so that you move through the day with grace. Your atmosphere also begins to affect the spaces you walk into. When you walk into your job, your school, your home, people feel something different. They may not have words for it, but they sense peace. They sense strength. You begin to bring heaven's presence into earthly places. It's not about being loud or flashy. It's about carrying a depth that only comes from consistent intimacy with God. Your presence becomes a gateway. Your voice, even when silent, speaks peace into confusion. That is the mark of a life built on morning prayer. As you cultivate this habit, you'll notice that negativity no longer clings to you. Toxic environments don't shake your spirit. You carry a joy that's not circumstantial, but spiritual. It flows from the atmosphere you've created with God before the sun even rose. That divine atmosphere becomes your shield and your banner. You start your day clothed in light. You speak with clarity. You move with purpose. You no longer react to life. You respond from a place of spiritual authority. There is great power in shaping your atmosphere before the day has a chance to shape you. When you engage in morning prayer, you are not only inviting God's presence, you are hosting it. You are making your heart His home and your life His dwelling place. And where He dwells, peace reigns, favor follows, miracles unfold, and lives are changed. You cannot control what happens in the world, but you can control the atmosphere you carry into it. And that atmosphere begins with prayer. Don't ever underestimate the quiet power of your early morning words. Never dismiss the simple act of bowing your head in the stillness before sunrise. For in that space, heaven descends. In that space, battles are won before they're fought. In that space, you don't just prepare for the day. You shape it. You command it. You consecrate it. And in doing so, you create an atmosphere that draws heaven near and keeps darkness far. That is the miracle of morning prayer. Every morning holds a divine invitation, an open doorway to reset your spirit, renew your mind, and align your heart with the presence of God. This is not about routine or religious obligation. It is about relationship. It is about choosing each day to step away from chaos and step into the calm. It is about whispering truth before the world has a chance to lie to you. Morning prayer is the secret place where transformation begins. Not by changing your circumstances instantly, but by changing you deeply. The life you desire is not far off. It is built day by day in the quiet moments where heaven meets your honesty. You don't need perfect words, just a surrendered heart. You don't need hours, just consistency. One moment in the morning with God can do more than a full day of striving. It is in those early whispers of worship, repentance, gratitude, and faith that your destiny begins to take form. So rise tomorrow with a new intention. Don't rush into the day without first touching eternity. Let the first voice you hear be God's. Let your first thought be gratitude. Let your first action be prayer. For when you seek Him first, everything else begins to find its rightful place. And as you make this a habit, not just a one-time experience, you will begin to live, not from pressure, but from power, not from fear, but from faith, not from confusion, but from clarity. The morning prayer doesn't just start your day, it reshapes your life. And the more you return to that sacred space, the more you will realize the transformation you were searching for. It was never somewhere out there. It was always within you, waiting for you to make room for God each morning. That is where your life truly begins.